I don't do this often, so bear with me. The most eyes I ever have on me like this are when I go check in with my chickens. So my name is Caitlin Frame, and I own and operate the Milkhouse Dairy Farm and Creamery in Monmouth, Maine, with my partner, Andy Smith. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. An individual farm really does contain multitudes, which are being enumerated here today. But it can also, in deeply contradictory ways, feel very insular at times. So the opportunity to bring our farm outside of Maine and into this room is pretty fun. My partner, Andy, went to college in Maine, and I ended up there after going to college in New York State, and after a few apprenticeships at veggie farms with family cows and a micro dairy management position, where we made a lot of cheese, which we liked, but didn't relish the painfully long process of that. Andy and I ended up at a farm called Two Loons in South China, Maine. Two Loons Farm is a certified organic commercial dairy, mid-size by Maine standards, and it's owned and operated by Paige Tyson and Spencer Atel. And that's where we spent 3 years starting to build the Milkhouse, as well as working on Two Loons Farm. It's not easy to get into agriculture as a first-generation farmer, which is very much what Andy and I both are. And there's no way that we would have been able to be where we are now without the guidance and wisdom of those who've been farming for years and generations before us. And we were really provided with an incubator space by Paige and Spencer to even be able to launch our business. So at Two Loons Farm, we started making yogurt in a 25-gallon pot on a couple propane burners. And from 1 quart of yogurt, from 1 quart of milk, you get 1 quart of yogurt. We liked that 1-to-1 ratio, the simplicity of making yogurt, and the quick return. Pretty soon, we had our first product line, our original whole milk yogurt, blueberry yogurt, and plain Greek yogurt, which we started selling at local farmers markets and a handful of wholesale accounts. So over the course of being at Two Loons Farm, our small processing business grew steadily. We added accounts, bought new equipment, and then in 2014, we began looking for a permanent home farm for our family, business, and our animals. And in 2015, in August, we were milking cows in Monmouth, Maine. Our farm now is located in a little valley on the western edge of Kennebec County. We found the land to be beautiful, nearly 280 acres, much of it fairly flat, open pasture, as well as woodlot and wetlands. It kind of sounds like an easy transition. And while we did find the land we wanted to be on quickly, there was a very many years process of continuing to build our little business, writing a business plan, getting a lender, and then in the end, too, to purchase this land, we put a conservation easement on it, which was bought from us at the time of purchase by Maine Farmland Trust. That greatly reduced the pay price to us and was the only reason that we could access that land at all. All the food that's produced on our farm, milk, yogurt, eggs, meat, is certified organic or raised as such. We strive to improve the health of our soils, crops, livestock through regenerative, ecologically based farming practices, principally on our farm, intensive grazing on perennial pastures. We want to be adding organic matter, building microbial populations, releasing nutrient reservoirs, generally creating a rich environment where plants can live and thrive stress-free and well-fed. It also leads to nutrient-dense meats and milk with a healthier nutritional profile for the humans that consume it. I believe pasturing animals in the growing season and giving them lots of outdoor access in the winter, should they choose to make use of it, is crucial to the health and well-being of animals. I believe that domesticated animals should be able to act out their natural behaviors. To me, that means, first and foremost, ample space. Consider this: a confined feeding operation is in of itself stressful to the animals subject to that situation, and their limited access to fresh air, sunlight, clean bedding, and contaminated food make them susceptible to bacterial and viral infections. I believe animals should have a sort of basic right to the following conditions: fresh pasture, air, sunlight, soil, clean food and water, and shelter. To do anything other than let a cow be a cow, or a chicken, or a pig, is to create a problem for us to figure out. And to go a little further into a place that feels perhaps a little radical given the number of humans that live on this planet and what kind of food production systems are needed to feed them all. But I think that's what we're trying to figure out here. I will say this: I believe that we ought to extend our attention and care to the full animal dignity of each creature we encounter, as well as the full dignity of the land that sustains us. To bestow our fondness and love upon what we do is powerful. If we as farmers say we do this endless work for the love of it, then we ought to practice love for the land, the animals, the farm systems that we partake in through regenerative agricultural practices. Our cows average close to 80 to 90% dry matter intake from pasture in the growing season, well over the USDA mandate of 30%. Not only do we believe this practice is integral to soil health, we believe this is best for the health and well-being of our animals, and ultimately what's healthy for the humans consuming the milk and meat of cows. Cows like being outside and can seemingly display enthusiasm, true enthusiasm, over fresh grass. They're not content to be enclosed or stand on concrete for the entirety of their lives. This is a video of our turnout.
Oh my God.
They're so excited. It's funny, the excitement definitely diminishes over the season. They're just like a little more chill about it later. But sometimes, they're really excited for a fresh paddock when they start galloping. Dairy farming in New England is challenging in that our growing season is a short 6 months. We do some bale grazing on pasture in the fall to replenish worn-out areas of pasture or hayland by adding organic material and allowing the dormant seeds in the hay to take root. But after the cold really clamps down, our farm seems to shrink dramatically in size. And to really integrate the winter housing into our farm system, we use a bedded pack barn. Oh, so this is dairy farming in New England in the winter. That's a frozen water. This is our bedded pack barn, the dairy herd side, and then the center of the barn with the dairy herd on the left and young stock heifer steers on the right. So the dairy herd side is rototilled daily, and fresh wood shavings or chopped mulch hay or straw is added. As an actively composting system, the pack material is very warm. Over the course of the winter, the pack material builds up. We rarely have foot and leg issues that we've seen in freestall barns that, cows scraping themselves on concrete, etc. Comfortable cows that have little environmental stress have less issues with illness and make more milk. Our bedded pack system ties into our farm's goal of being regenerative. The compost that results from the bedded pack barn system is more stable, and it makes for a more nutrient-dense, high organic matter feed for the soil, richly populated with microbes. So in addition to our cows, we raise laying hens and also feeder pigs that we buy in from neighboring farms whose practices we feel in line with. We do buy organic grain in for our animals. We tend to stay on the very low end of the grain ration spectrum, and that, of course, is a source of fertility, but we also feed any of the dairy byproducts from the creamery to the pigs. That's skim milk, whey, and sometimes whole milk that would otherwise be a waste product is transformed into high-quality pork. The other big part of the Milkhouse is our on-farm creamery, which we started in 2012 at Tuloon's farm. When we moved to Monmouth, in addition to wanting to continue the yogurt and bottled milk part of our business, we also signed a contract with Horizon that explicitly allowed us to use our milk for our creamery business. The remainder of our milk would be sold to Horizon. The contract we signed specified a maximum amount of milk we could produce, and there were some loose expectations around a minimum amount in our bulk tank on pickup days, but otherwise we could use as much milk as we needed for our creamery. In our creamery, we make yogurt, bottle raw milk, and make eggnog in the months of November and December. Yogurt is one of those foods that can be highly processed, made with lots of sugar or thickeners, or it can be incredibly simple. When you start with good, clean milk, high in fat and protein, you can make yogurt simply with milk, probiotic bacteria, heat, and time. That's all you need. You don't need skim milk powder or carrageenan or any other strange-sounding thickener, xanthan gum. Our yogurt is of the 2-ingredient variety, fresh organic whole milk and probiotic bacteria. Our flavored yogurts are made with maple syrup and Maine wild blueberries. The maple syrup's also from Maine. We buy from other small producers. It's a simple, nourishing, and delicious staple food. It's also truly representative of the Maine milk shed. and like our own very local milk shed. Our cows are raised and sustained by the land of our farm, where they produce an abundance of rich milk, and we, along with all that good bacteria, magic that milk into yogurt, which is both an incredibly simple and complex conclusion to a process that begins with sunlight, soil, water, grass, and cows. For years, we've sold our yogurt mainly to natural food stores, co-ops, and a handful of cafes and restaurants, slowly adding accounts over the seasons and years. Over the past 2 years, we've added a number of independent grocery stores, 10 Hannaford supermarkets, 4 school districts, 3 colleges. We've also been selling bulk milk to our neighbor and co-farmers at Grace Pond Farm, a neighbor farm. They use a transport tank on the back of their pickup truck to bring milk from our farm to a couple different cheesemakers in a neighboring town. Both of the cheesemakers that Grace Pond Farm sells our milk to have turned to us after larger dairy farms who wanted to maintain their contracts with Organic Valley or Horizon stopped selling them the small amounts of milk that they were buying. So we are happy to be able to continue to provide these other small businesses with the raw product they need to make their local cheese. So we were notified in January 2018, a little over a year ago, that we would cease to have an outlet for our milk with Horizon starting 6 months from then, so at the end of July 2018. That was a huge blow to our morale, and for a few weeks there, our situation felt pretty desperate. Even if Stonyfield or Organic Valley had been signing contracts with new farms at the current pay price for organic milk, we had no wish to give up our processing business and ship only bulk milk. Our only option was to use more of our milk to make yogurt and then find a way to sell that yogurt. I don't want to minimize the struggle it took to feel like we wouldn't have to sell the cows, but as it was, in the wake of our contract termination, we were uniquely positioned with a branded farmstead product that we thought we had a market for. When we started milking cows in 2015, organic milk prices were at record highs, and now in 2018 and 19, the organic and conventional milk market is flooded and prices have plummeted. We are one of 6 of 15 farms in Maine who've been shipping milk to Horizon to lose our contracts, and just one of hundreds, probably thousands, of organic and conventional farms across the country to lose contracts in waves of terminations starting at the end of 2017 and continuing through to the present. Dairy farms contribute in a huge way to rural economies, keeping all farm support systems thriving. According to a 2004 report by the Maine Dairy Industry Association, the total economic impact of the dairy industry on the state of Maine amounts to $570 million in business sales and 4,000 jobs, generating nearly $150 million in earnings for Maine citizens. This report was updated in 2012, and those numbers stayed consistent. And these economic analysis can be extended to rural economies throughout the country, but especially in the Northeast and Upper Midwest, where dairy farming has been the heart of the farm economy for over 100 years. Dairy farms command large tracts of land that in part define the rural character of Maine and other states. These lands are invaluable for their many ecosystem services that benefit humans and animals alike, and biodiversity overall. As small family dairy farms die, so too do rural communities. The consolidation of industry has had dramatic impacts on communities throughout the country. Some of the most severely impacted are farming communities. Take, for example, poultry and pork production, where what was once produced on tens of thousands of independent farms throughout the country is now controlled by a small handful of multinational corporations that contract terms with growers that eliminate their autonomy as farmers, let alone their ability to make a living. Organic dairy has resisted this consolidation and style of industry, but now seems poised to suffer a similar fate as family-scale farms are losing their contracts, declaring bankruptcy, and selling their herds at an alarming rate. We are rapidly headed towards a world where the vast majority of milk is produced on a handful of massive confinement operations owned by processors and big-box retailers themselves. It would seem that the regulations outlined by the NOP would prevent this trend in the organic sector, providing a safe haven for independent family farmers. This should be especially true of the pasture rule, which, besides ensuring product quality and animal welfare, would cap the ultimate size any operation could reach. After all, as any dairy farmer would know, cows can't spend all day walking to grass and still produce milk. However, we live in a time when so many organic standards are not being enforced, and the organic milk market is flooded with milk from confinement operations that are organic in name only. There has been a great failure on the part of the NOSB to uphold standards, but consumers also will have a definitive role in this process of whether or not family-scale farms will continue to exist. When consumers say they want organic, do they want the cheapest possible store brand milk that originated 3,000 miles away, is ultra pasteurized, and has an expiration date of 3 months from now, and a nutritional profile that looks exactly like conventional milk? Or does the consumer want organic milk from family scale farms and from companies and individual farms that have integrity and that are part of communities, from reputable dairy farms whose cows live healthy, long lives and produce high-quality, nutritious milk because they are actually able to walk themselves to grass that grows out of healthy soil that provides the majority of their feed intake? It's our job to illustrate the different farming practices and draw the comparison between the two worlds that will result from the different types of agriculture we choose to support. We at the Milkhouse remain committed to regenerative organic agriculture, as is in line with the Real Organic Project standards, and we stand in solidarity with the other pilot farmers and the future farms that are part of this program. Standards that include a higher dry matter intake from pasture, a strict origin of livestock standard, and higher standards for animal welfare and soil management, to name a few. Farming has this great possibility to be like magic making if we can all stand back and look at it with that awe that Lindley talked about. It's pretty wild that we're grass farming and these lovely, peaceful animals make milk out of that grass, and we make this very nutrient-dense, nourishing food for people out of that milk. It's a privilege to provide to what is now thousands of people the food that we make. Every one of those interactions is meaningful. It's our grass grown in our soil that is feeding that many people, and in the process, we're improving our soils so that the land of our farm may continue to be a source of nourishment for our community for generations. Just imagine this process replicated over many thousands of farms through the country, bringing this meaningful exchange and nourishing food to thousands more people. Hundreds of thousands, millions maybe. And it is a beautiful vision, to be sure. And just a couple of cow love photos, another of the farm, and that's it.